I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Move to the next item on the agenda, the approval of the agenda for this meeting. Is there any?
Doug, I'd like to amend. Sorry.
Pat, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to amend the agenda to include under committee appointments, John Viola for the Budget and Finance Committee.
I'll second that.
Thank you, guys. Anybody have any issue, concern with adding that committee appointment to the agenda? All right, all those in favor of adding that, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, call it.
Aye.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to accept the meeting agenda as amended.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Technical difficulties there. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the September 21st meeting. I trust everybody has had a chance to review those minutes. I will accept a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I move.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes as presented? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of accepting the minutes of the September 21st meeting, please signify by saying aye.
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 None opposed. Next minutes is from the Friday, September 29th meeting. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion, any suggested changes, issues with the minutes for the September 29th meeting? Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the September 29th meeting as presented, please signify by saying aye.
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 None opposed? Thank you. Minutes are approved. Next item, President's remarks. Nothing really from my perspective. I just want to thank my board colleagues. It seems like we're coming together. What I found interesting over the past 30 to 45 days is we seem to be settling into areas of expertise. We're taking on issues and leading them, which I thought was a very, very good approach. We've got different behind-the-scenes things that are moving forward, and each director seems to be taking an approach to that, and I think that's very, very welcoming from my perspective. Our goal as a team is to get together as a team and kind of cooperate and really complement one another, and so far that's been going on quite well, and I just wanted to publicly thank my board colleagues for all of that. So moving on, Treasurer's Report. Pat.
Doug, do we have a copy there on the, is it up on the screen or anything?
We have technical difficulties this morning without that.
Oh, wait a minute.
I don't even have it.
They don't even have it after I. Never mind. Hey, Pat, I was making a joke about the updated spreadsheet.
Yeah, I got it, Doug. I'm disappointed that your graphs aren't there.
Okay.
I will just hit the highlights from that report, and since it's not there to be presented. The year-to-date operating results, and these amounts are presented in thousands. The year-to-date operating results, $3,847. That's exclusive of any capital purchases, and that's a variance from budget of $762. For food and beverage payroll costs, the industry standard is 35%. The yacht club's actual is 51%, and the beach club's actual is 46%, and those are both year-to-date numbers. The cash available for operations at September 30 is $2,855. Accounts receivable net has decreased over the last 3 years from $1,081 in 2015 to $872 in 2017. The reserve balance has increased from $6,575 in 2015 to $8,230 as of September 30th. The capital expenditures, replacement capital, is $300 over budget, and that is primarily the work on the racket sport courts, the mowers, and beach club renovations. New capital is 127 versus 86 budgeted, and roads and bridges, 86 spent and 150 budgeted. That's my report.
Thank you, Pat. Colleagues, any questions for Pat?
The concern, I guess, that I would want to express is that we really are going to need to have some projection of cash available throughout the year. You know, what we have right now is, you know, good to know, but we have, you know, our revenue season is, you know, pretty much ended. So would it be possible to get those projections?
Yeah. I'm working on one right now. I would like to get with John Viola, sit down, because he was there during the summer and very knowledgeable. I've got some numbers to collect, but I would like to work through them a bit. So I would say by November's meeting, I have a number that we feel comfortable with.
Okay, and then I have one other question. The only other... is that better? Okay, is that better? Okay, sounds good. Pat, the only other question I have is, I tried to match those cash figures to what was in the September quarterly report, and I wasn't able to do that, and I'm sure that has to do with being a layperson. And if,
Available for operations?
yes,
Is that what you're talking about?
yes,
That is our total cash position, total. That includes, we didn't have CDs in the September, but we're moving to CDs for some of that money. But that includes our total cash position, less whatever should be in the reserves at that time. So the reserve balance at September 30 was $8,230,000. So that's pulled out of the cash. So what's left is available for operations.
okay, thank you.
All right, moving on, the next item on the agenda, the general manager's report. JB?
There we go. All right. And not that I normally need this, but I'll use it. Budget work has begun within the various departments. All the department heads have their templates to work on, and we'll be getting our first draft done here shortly. And preparing the board and the finance committee had a good meeting the other day on budget guidance, and so all that will begin to take a impact on what myself and the managers are working on. Regarding food and beverage, but still under a total review, and what I mean by total review, it's not just dealing with the yacht club, but Beach Club, Turns Grill, and the snack bar sites. I mentioned last month that finding a short-term solution like one of those big Rubik's Cubes, not the 3-sided one, but the 5-sided one, because we had to look at the existing contracts that we had, anything that was on the books for banquets and receptions and things like that, as well as dealing with personnel issues, both now and for going in the future, as well as dealing with member expectations. Spent some time talking with members that were there at the yacht club on Thursday nights, Friday nights, et cetera, and getting a feel for what they might be willing to accept as far as some changes go. So I wanted to include them in that process. So the next step, effective, obviously the beach club is closed. The 20% discount that wasn't budgeted for certainly impacted our revenue stream and our projections. So that ends this coming Monday on the 30th as we end the month of October. So going forward, that won't exist. That's not to say we won't have the discounts here and there, but the general 20% discount that was instituted earlier in the year, that's gone. The slide indicates yacht club. I guess I put that out there. I had a question mark beside it on the slide. Note the name. Probably be going back to yacht club, but we'll see what the reaction is to that. There you go. Schedule changes for November through March. And this is subject to change as well, but at least for right now, from November through March, we'll always be doing our banquets and special events that we already have scheduled. Regular dining, we're going to be moving just to Friday and Saturday nights only. We'll be open 4 to midnight. Friday night will be specials and live entertainment. Saturdays, we'll have specials and trivia night. Sunday brunch will be discontinued for the winter period. I know that was well liked. Our numbers over the last 6 or 7 weeks were about, we had 1 week, I guess it was the week of Sunfest, where we had 58, and that's where we about break even when we get 55 to 60. Anything less than that, we're losing. And the other weekends we were having about 25 or 26 people come to the brunch. So we're going to discontinue the brunch for the time being. So those are some initial steps. We've got a lot more going on, and I know that there's an agenda item later on that the board will be addressing this as well. For Turns Grill, we'll continue operations throughout the winter with our usual changes in their winter hours. We're looking at some menu changes there as well. So again, it's a general wholesale review. It's not just dealing with the yacht club, it's dealing with all the food and beverage. Regarding country club construction, that second floor, I've reviewed the last round of drawings, those that were approved and those that weren't approved by the board. We'll see what the differences were in those. I've considered the ultimate end use of the facility, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Considered new concepts with the staff. And did I do that? Hello? Is that magnetic personality of mine again?
Testing?
Just me. Okay. Consider new concepts with the staff as well as with an engineering from Becker Morgan. Now, why did I choose Becker Morgan? That's the company that did the actual evaluation of the facility back in 2016. We've had evidently the two design works that schematics that have been developed have been by 2 different companies, and not the company that we had that did the structural evaluation of the building. I have a new layout for the board to consider with possible initial action at the November meeting. It would basically be that there was a large room in the upper, and that's on that second floor, to raise the ceiling on that to create a big open space in the middle that would be available for, and again, going back to what I said earlier about what's the end use that we want for the facility. Thinking of the ability for clubs and organizations, we have over 50 that are clamoring for space to meet. Sometimes they can't get, the bigger ones can't get all together too often, or at least availability of space for them, excuse me, is probably the better way to say that. So with this large room on the second floor, and then that would be available for clubs and organizations to meet, as well as when the golf course hosts corporate outings or special events. Yes, sir.
JB, can I interrupt for 1 second? Hey, Patrick, not to put you on the spot, is there any chance that we can get that layout up on the screen here? Is that
That's what was missing, I think.
That's what we were missing?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Just folks, I know it's a little bit of an inconvenience, but I know visually it might be better to look at it, but unfortunately we can't do that. But thank you anyway. Very good, thank you.
So this main space in the middle, 2 meeting rooms, about 20 feet, about 40 feet in total, that can be combined into one large meeting space. So you've got, again, 2 meeting rooms, but could be one larger meeting room, as well as the large open area where you can have big meetings, board meetings, corporate golf events, other special outings like that. The kitchen would be retrofitted not as a dining facility per se, but as a banquet buffet type of facility, where the clubs and organizations, if they were looking to have a meal with their meeting, it would be a buffet style setting. If clubs and organization wanted a plated meal, that's for the yacht club. We could also have other community-wide events there, where if we wanted to do a fish fry on a Friday night, or a spaghetti night on a Saturday, or a family fun day on Sunday evenings, that would provide that opportunity there for a larger crowd. So, looking at in use. Excuse me. We would also look at changing the front side of the building, so that when you would come in, we have a little rise there at the front of the building that is basically a push-up of dirt. We'd have to deal with utilities, so that would be some work out front. But to lower that back down to it's really not a whole floor, it's more like a half floor raised up. So we'd lower that back down so you just go in on that bottom floor. To your left would be the turn grill, to the right would be the entrance to the pro shop, men's room on the left, ladies' room on the right. How do we deal with that ADA access? We had this interesting plan for a large raised ramp with a lot of switchbacks going around the side of the building. We would eliminate the little half elevator that's in there now and put in an actual elevator to take you up to the second floor where the large room would be. That area at the front there, that would just be a vaulted ceiling, open space when you come in. So you'd have the elevator to go up and then a stairway to go up as well. At this point in time, there's no action at this point by the board, but possible initial action at the November meeting to actually get schematic designs drawn up. These would not be construction documents yet, unless you wanted to jump straight to that, but I doubt you want to do that. The schematics would cost about $5,000, and then to actually get to construction documents, that would be probably $30,000 to $40,000. Timeline, I know that people were really wanting to get to construction done and open and everything by Memorial Day or even the end of June, and talking with the engineer and really laying this project out. You really are looking a year from now before you're done with everything, based upon the following process. One, to get schematic designs to make sure we're on the right path, and that's what we want. And then construction drawings to actually put out to bid, and then you issue the bids, issue a bid proposal for the contractors, and that will take 1 to 3 months to get that back. And then by the time you decide which contractor we're going to go with, then you're looking at probably 4 to 6 months of construction. So to do it right, it will take some time. Now, what I would say is, I know we'd love to have it open by the 50th anniversary golf tournament and whatnot. At this point, maybe we're looking at least we would, at that point, we would have the plans, and everybody would be able to ooh and ah over that while that, and getting that work going. So that's sort of where we are with that right now. Again, I'll have some schematic drawings that would include all of those things that I was talking about as far as describing what the building would look like internally and externally at the November board meeting. A few other things to report on. Obviously, the Recreation Department is, we have their Fall Festival is tomorrow. I think yours truly gets to be one of the judges, so I'm looking forward to that. And then, of course, all the holiday events. Racket Sports, the 2 new platform tennis courts, we have been required by the county to put in some curb and gutter with some concrete, obviously. That will be happening this coming week. That's related to the parking. And then the structure itself will be built around that, built around the pavement that's already been poured. That's part's done. The structure itself will be started the following week. Regarding information technology and the technology work group efforts, we are looking for researching a new full management software program for the association that would include the financials and all the other things that we do. And we're also heavily looking at a new point of sale system, and I've heard interesting things what POS stands for. But you know, that is definitely needed and required sooner rather than later. The big piece of software that will we want to do that right, and we'll take our time with that. That's going to cost a little more money, but the point of sale system, I'm going to say we'll have that in place before we get into our new season. And lastly, last month the board directed me to create a job description for a human resources position. I have done that. I apologize that I forgot to include it in my actual point, but I'll distribute that to the board of directors here shortly for you guys to look at. The one question I have for you is, and it impacts the salary of the position, and that is, you know, do we want that to be a director position or a manager position? And that would impact and so it's written up as a director of human resources, but we might could go a little less than that. The last thing I want to mention to you is that director of finance position was advertised. We had 53 applicants. I reviewed those and grouped them to the different levels of qualifications. Myself and Treasurer Supik interviewed 3 of them. All 3 of them were very good candidates, and we could have gone with any of the 3. However, the position has been offered and accepted. The name is confidential right now. Actually just got off the phone with him. He needs to let his employer know about that, and then we will, as soon as I hear back from him, we'll release that information for everybody's benefit. Okay, thank you.
JB, thank you. Any questions for JB?
Yeah, I do have a question for General Manager. Your last remark about the IT situation specifically related to POS systems, we started with what was then just one system, Micros, and then I understand from what transpired over the course of several months, we went from 1 to as many as 3. Now you are remarking to us that we are looking at a new POS system. Are you telling us basically we are scratching all 3 that we had and we are now, you know, shopping for something new, or are we trying to sort out what we had, what to standardize on, and just narrow it down to one?
Okay, 2 comments. One is that initially we'll probably just go back to Micros, which we have. We know it worked, and that will get us through. In the meantime, this larger IT software question about our entire software management system, whether it's Lansa or something else, those other systems may have point-of-sale systems within them. I know that some do. And so we may end up, if we change from Lansa to, and I'm just going to throw one out, it doesn't mean anything, to something like Jonas, then Jonas has all of that. There are other softwares that have that type of system involved in it as well. So if we were to change the wholesale from Lansa to something else, and it includes a different POS system, then that would be the result. But for the meantime, probably looking at just going back to micros. We're not looking at probably something else unless something comes out of our research that says, hey, this is wonderful, and then we go with that. But my initial thought would be probably be micros. Okay.
JB, thank you.
I have a question also.
Yes, ma'am.
As far as that new full management software, is that just for the administration, or is that going to serve the needs of all the departments?
The intent is to serve all the needs.
Okay, and is input from each department head as far as their end user
Yes.
needs? Okay.
Absolutely.
And then I had a question about the yacht club winter plan. The music and dinner, that's going to be in the main dining room downstairs. Is that your plan? Reserve upstairs for banquets? Or have you thought that?
We've been talking about whether or not to have the band on a Friday night upstairs or downstairs. I guess we haven't really finalized that thought yet.
Okay, and there's been a bunch of rumors running around about some kind of a acoustic improving system for the upstairs. I know the sound engineers are having trouble modulating the volume to provide appropriate mix without blasting us out of the room.
Right.
What's going on with respect to that?
Only research at this point in time.
Okay.
I don't, that's why I'm leaning to having the music downstairs versus the upstairs.
Are the sound engineers giving any input on that as to which venue's going to be easier for them to work with?
I have not spoken directly to them. I don't know if Brian has or not.
Okay.
So that's something for me to follow up on.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
Thank you, JB. Next item on the agenda is public comments. I ask that you please make sure that you keep your comments relevant and that you give your name and address before public comments.
Hey, Tom Janicek, 17 Lookout Point. Is this thing on? Doesn't matter. I'm here speaking about as a member of the Environment and Natural Assets Committee. I know you all are doing a second reading of our C10 change today, and I just want to give you a little background on why we changed it and what the reasons behind it were. It seems minuscule as you look at it because some of the wording in the first paragraph is actually down lower in our C10 resolution, but it's important to us. We've decided to go in a direction of saving the St. Martins, to get the St. Martins River back clean and healthy for all the people in Ocean Pines. We want to be leading in saving the St. Martins. It's our second biggest asset after the beach club and the ocean. We don't want any incidents happening on our river, at our beaches in Ocean Pines, anything that would happen to degrade Ocean Pines and make us look bad. So that's our goal with this. We've partnered, or not partnered, but we're in very close contact with Maryland Coastal Bays. They're helping us initialize plans on how to keep the waters clean, on how to clean up our canals, Peruvian flutes, oyster beds, plantings in the yards. We're going to put together all kinds of recommendations for homeowners that are on our canals and on our riverways. That's our project for this year. We're also working with them. We're putting together a OP Bay Day. It's going to be a huge, May 20th, it's going to be a huge event here at the event center outside here at the park. We're hopefully going to have a boat taking people out into the rivers to show them what you can do in order to help sustain the bay. We're going to have over 30 exhibits of different things you can do and different animals in the bay. It's going to be extremely interactive for kids and adults alike. We're going to have some of the local fishermen who are extremely outgoing to give you ideas of what's happening in the bay, where they fish and what they see. We're going to have might have somebody from our local sanitation plant to tell us how that works, so you know that there's no bad nutrients going into our bay. So we're working very hard to get together with with Maryland Coastal Bays and make sure that our rivers are clean and make sure that we keep cleaning and doing whatever we have to do. Because right now up in the St. Martin, the grade is a D-, and it's getting worse. It's not getting better. I mean, you have poultry plants up there. You have things. We've done the Bishopville Dam. The MCBP has done the Bishopville Dam project. If you've ever been up there near Bishopville, it's a really cool setup where they put in rivers and things to filter all the water coming out of the fields, up the chicken fields and the farms. So it's really neat if you ever get a chance to go up the road right before you get to Bishopville. It's that little bridge right at the end of the St. Martin's, right on the prong. Get up there and take a look at it. It's really cool. So that's what we're doing. That's the reason we've asked for the C10 change. It really doesn't do anything, doesn't affect a whole lot, other than we want from now going forward our Environmental and Natural Assets Committee to be focused on saving the river. That doesn't mean we're not going to focus on other projects. We're currently putting together a project to try and clean up the mailboxes and cover them up. We're going to hopefully have something to present to you next month, to maybe include in the budget if at all possible. And we're doing other things for plantings around Ocean Pines, different kind of tree lines to protect us so we don't see the medical complex and things to that nature. So we're not neglecting the other. I just want to let you know that our main focus from here going forward is going to be trying to save the St. Martin's, trying to keep our waterway clean for everybody that uses it. And if you go out to swim and racket in the summer, there's a ton of people using it. I mean, there's a paddleboard or a kayak or whatever going out of there every 5 minutes. And we just don't want something bad to happen to give us a bad reputation. So that's why we're really, really concentrating on that. So I just wanted to thank you about that. One of our past chairman, and apparently I'm the new chairman, is coming up later to talk about the wind farm issue going out outside of Ocean City. We are wholeheartedly behind not approving this wind farm the way it sits. It is going to be, there's a statistic that they could put up to 140 windmills within 13 miles of our coast. If you're laying on the beach at Ocean Pines Beach Club, which is our #1 asset, all you're going to see are those windmills. I mean, you're going to see them. It's going to be a sight, an eyesore. So he'll give you a lot more information because he's gone way in depth, more than I could. My brain couldn't handle it, so he knows it all. But I just want to let you know that the Environmental and Natural Assets Committee is behind him 100% and behind against the wind farms, along with Ocean City. Mayor Rick Meehan just wrote us a big letter. I'm sure Ken's going to allude to it when he doesn't speak. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Tom. Other public comments?
Good morning, John Reese, 817 Yacht Club Drive. I have 2 questions. I heard John Bailey's report, and it sounds like we're on the track to reduce our losses. Have we rolled out using an outside operator to run the yacht club is one question. The other question is, anything new on the missing $24,000?
So at the risk of being somewhat insensitive to your question, this is public comments and not question and answer. However, your point is noted. As things become available and it's appropriate to release information to the public, it will be done.
Okay.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Yeah, my name is Ken Wolf, 14 Grandport Road. I'm the chair of the Ocean Pines Environmental Committee, and I come to speak to you in that capacity today. I'm also the president of the Assateague Coastal Trust. I want to speak to the motion that was passed unanimously by our committee opposing the wind farms off Ocean City as currently proposed. This motion, which was submitted to the board, has been temporarily withdrawn as its passage was unlikely due to concern by the board that this was a political matter. Our committee has become concerned that the planned wind farm development off the coast of Ocean City, as currently conceived, could have a serious negative impact on Ocean Pines Association property owners, as well as the majority of county residents and businesses. Our apprehension is based on certain findings of a study by North Carolina State University regarding the impact of wind farms on coastal tourism. They found that 54% of tourists said they would not rent a vacation home if turbines were in view at all, no matter how large of a discount was offered in the rental price. As proposed off our coast by U.S. Wind, these turbines will be as close as 9 miles offshore. These structures are 570 feet above sea level and visible from the beach when in closer than 26 miles. Therefore, they will be clearly visible both day and night, and at night due to the myriad of warning lights that are required. By applying these North Carolina findings to our situation on the Maryland coast, Ocean Pines property owners could be negatively affected in several ways. The view from our association's beachfront property would make this property less desirable and accordingly less valuable to our property owners. A material decrease in occupancy in Ocean City could have a direct and cascading negative economic effects on the economic health of Ocean City, Ocean Pines, and the county as a whole. There would be resultant job losses and potential tax base reductions due to failing and stressed businesses, and that would ripple through OPA and beyond. This is also would likely result in a reduction in property values in Ocean City, our community, and elsewhere. Right now, this wind farm seems to be heading towards realization in 2020, and we can see no ongoing benefit to Ocean Pines or the county to justify such a very substantial risk. We believe that the board needs to publicly indicate that at this time we are resolutely opposed to proceeding as planned. We need to ask that these turbines be required to be located at least 26 miles offshore where they will not be visible. If this fails to gain traction in relatively short order and the project appears unaffected, we should recommend that a comprehensive study of the planned wind farm's impact on Ocean City and county tourism be conducted by a highly credible, nonpartisan organization. It needs to include, in addition to tourists, representative county stakeholders, including Ocean Pines homeowners and other county residents and businesses. Those results need to be broadcast to residents in detail. Only at that time should next steps be planned. I've met with a lot of people or spoken to a lot of people in regard to this matter before I come before you. I've spoken to the author of the North Carolina study. I've spoken to the information officer regarding this study at the University at North Carolina State, and both of them verified that there's been no credible challenge whatsoever to the veracity of this study. As a matter of fact, the author has made numerous, I mean, she said thousands, which, I mean, probably is a dozen, presentations. She made one down in Mississippi, on this study just within the last week. I've spoken to Andy Harris's staff that are assigned to this project. I've spoken to Jim Mathias at length, the Public Service Commission of Maryland, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, BOEM. This project is currently in their hands. I've spoken to the Audubon Society, the Office of the People's Counsel, who argued back in March for local involvement and a local survey before proceeding. I've spoken to the Maryland Energy Administration, and I've also met with the mayor of Ocean City and his staff. We feel that the voice of our community, due to its considerable size, is crucial in giving cause for those involved to stop and seriously evaluate the issue before proceeding further. We would hope to publicize the board's written support in an attempt to influence events. Wind energy and unspoiled ocean views are not mutually exclusive. We can have our cake and eat it too. We just need to have these moved out of the view shed, which is the buzzword. Several board members commented on not wanting to get involved in politics. This is not political. I see this as a fiduciary responsibility of your position. You have no clearer obligation than to defend our property owners from such an unfortunate and needless event. The mayor of Ocean City gave me something that he wanted to read to the board, and I'm going to read it right now. On behalf of the town of Ocean City, I would like to express my consideration, my appreciation for the board's consideration of our concerns regarding the development of offshore wind facilities off the Ocean City coastline. While the mayor and city council support clean energy, including offshore wind, it is important that these projects be developed in a responsible manner. The currently proposed projects call for the construction of up to 140 wind turbines as close as 13 miles from our shore. Each of these turbines would be 600 feet tall and visible from the Ocean City beach. Structures of this scale, this close to our shoreline, will destroy the clear ocean views that our residents and visitors enjoy and negatively affect the economy of our region and the quality of life of our community. Therefore, the mayor and city council are opposed to any project that includes any permanent offshore structures that will be visible from our shoreline, including both of the proposed offshore wind projects. The mayor would like the opportunity to come and meet with the board and speak to the board. I know you have concerns. I suggest that the next step is that you take the mayor up on his offer. This would be an excellent way to learn more about this from those at the center of this serious issue who have interests that are closely aligned to our own. He can answer the questions you undoubtedly have. You have more than enough probable cause to at least take this next step. Failure to proceed would seem to be a breach of your responsibility to present property to present property owners as well as property owners for generations yet to come. You can't put this toothpaste back in the tube. This is a call to action. Will you now agree to this next step? Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, I know some of the board members had questions. One of them I know was, well, gee, we looked at that study, and she said that, you know, if it's further than 8 miles, this is not going to be an issue. In that study, there are facts that the study generated, okay? But in that study, they talk about, in addition to the 54% that wouldn't accept it, wouldn't come, no matter how much of a discount, there was an additional 26% of participants made more nuanced trade-offs. They needed rental discounts if wind farms were as close as 12 miles offshore, and the discounts they needed if turbines were closer than 12 miles was so high as to be completely unrealistic. So you're talking about, you know, 74% of the people just totally reject this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Other public comments? Seeing none, I'll close public comments. Next item on the agenda is capital purchase requests. As of today, we have none. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, CPI violations. As of today, none have been reported that require board intervention. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, unfinished business. First is a motion of the second reading for Resolution C-10. Pat Supik.
I move to accept the second reading of amendments to Resolution C-10 to include as the committee's principal ongoing focus the health of water surrounding Ocean Pines, with primary concentration on the St. Martins River, and to make the first function of the committee helping maintain the health of the waterways. The motion to amend Resolution C-10 had a first reading without change at the regular board meeting September 29, 2017. It is presented today for a vote on its second reading.
I second it.
Thank you, Ted. There's a motion for the second reading has been seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion for the second reading of changes to Resolution C-10, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Please record it as unanimous. Thank you. The next item in unfinished business is a motion for the operations assessment of the food and beverage operation, Slobodan.
Thank you, Doug. Motion. The general manager is directed to conduct assessment of all food and beverage operations and develop a specific recommendation for improvements that are based on consultation with professional food and beverage companies and individuals. The general manager's assessment report and his recommendations should be presented to the board by December 31st, 2017, with specific solutions, including outsourcing/leasing operations that will successfully eliminate future food and beverage operating losses. Excuse me. Background. The board conceptually agreed that an operational assessment was necessary during its July meetings and subsequently requested that a local professionals be consulted. Purpose and effect. This assessment will allow the board and the general manager to gain valuable information from professional companies and individuals and provide recommendation on a best overall business structure for our food and beverage operations. The intent of the board-approved solution is to provide a level of guarantee and performance measures to ensure that our food and beverage facilities will generate a net operating profit in the future.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Discussion.
I just have one comment. I'm assuming in this, what you've described about it being an assessment of all options and all venues, that they'll each be looked at as their unique properties present themselves. Certainly golf, food and beverage needs to be tied to golf operations. The beach operations are certainly, qualitatively different. So I would not be thinking that we'd be looking at a one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, yeah, I might add, I like to think that based on John's experience, he certainly would look at the entire food and beverage operation, not a specific, point of the environment. And my own comment is, I think we were basically following up on the original intent back in July and just, making it formal and really taking that step forward, because we've been talking about it, and now we really want to take action. And I think this gives the general manager kind of that flexibility to move forward and really, attack these issues and make sure that we really do put a concerted effort towards making sure that the financial operation of our food and beverage environment does improve somewhat. Other comments? Since it's being recorded, I want to make sure we do that.
Question I had was regarding the consultant piece of it. Was there money budgeted for that, or is I've got the freedom to do what I need to do to do that? I don't know that I'm going to get that for free. So.
No, I'd like to think that there is some budget that will need to be attached to that. I would just like, from a professional courtesy perspective, to keep everybody on the board informed, and then if we have to move into a special meeting in order to approve a specific level of funding, we will do so.
Okay, all right, that's what I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Other comments? Seeing none, I'll close the discussion and call the question. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you. Please record as noted. On the agenda, there was no more items in the unfinished business, so we'll move to new business. So under new business, there's a motion for emergency bulkhead repairs. Ted.
It is moved that the board approve the emergency repairs to bulkheads contract with High Tide. Background: OPA has canceled the contract executed by the acting general manager in October of 2016. Subsequent to that, at board direction, OPA legal counsel entered into negotiation with High Tide legal counsel pertaining to emergency repairs to bulkheads in Ocean Pine. We have reached a mutually acceptable agreement for emergency repairs. The issue of long-term replacement will be addressed after the board receives a presentation from the GM Public Works at the November board meeting, and the board has been provided a copy of the contract.
Is there a second? Second. Discussion. For the sake of the association, just wanted to make sure that you understood exactly where we are with that. Again, as Ted mentioned, the original contract signed back in October of 2016 has been canceled. This particular contract is specifically focused on emergency work, and can be used as additional emergency work comes up. If you'll recall, a gentleman presented during public comments at the last meeting concerns from a client of his regarding emergency repairs at a specific address. This contract will directly address those issues and allow us to move forward with emergency work. Other comments? Seeing none, I'll close comments and call the question. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Opposed? None. Please record accordingly. Next item under new business, a comprehensive plan advisory committee recommendations. Slobodan.
Thank you, Doug. What I would like to do is just make a comment regarding this topic, and then what I would like to do is ask the President to suspend Robert's rules and allow Frank Daly, the chair of the committee, to share with the board the presentation that he has put together. As we all know, the committee for the past 5 years or so has been working on developing a comprehensive plan for the association. For a variety of reasons, the committee has not produced the document yet. When I was appointed as a new liaison to the committee, I met with the chair of the committee and discussed the situation and basically asked him and the members to really take a look at what the issues are, why the committee has not been able to put together the document that has been in the works for 5 years plus, and to come up with approach that might help the committee overcome these hurdles and really jumpstart the effort. The result of that discussion and subsequent committee meeting produced very specific recommendations. I want to thank John Bailey for attending the meeting, and I also want to recognize him for the fact that he has gone around other committee meetings and taken part in those, which is really great because it gives him a perspective on the dynamics of the community and the committee's involvements and how important they are. So I am totally behind the committee's recommendations. I think it points to some obvious challenges and the source of those challenges, and also presents a different approach and charter for the committee going forward that I believe will jumpstart the effort and help eventually really come up with what we need, which is a strategic plan, a multi-year strategic plan that's going to be very much tied to our capital improvement plan, our reserve study. So with that in mind, I would like to ask you now to suspend Robert's rules and allow Frank to come and share with the board his committee's recommendations.
I agree to suspend Robert's Rules of Order and ask Mr. Daly to come up and speak with us, please. Thank you.
I hope it's not a lot. You're welcome. You're welcome. Said the committee has been working for a long time. There's recommendations still in front of the board that was presented to the past board, but in looking at everything, here's basically what we've concluded in our recommendation. Number one, we would like the board to eliminate the current comprehensive plan model from the resolution. We would like the board to endorse the concept of a strategic plan that follows the traditional corporate format, developed by the general manager and his staff, getting the community's input, and presenting that plan to the board for implementation, for their review and implementation and approval. We think that following the state of Maryland template for city planning is inherently a flawed, bad idea. It just won't work. The plan should be a look-ahead document, 3 years minimum, 5 years recommended, first year planning 100% firm, second year planning 80%, third 60%, fourth and fifth 30%. I'm sure those of you with corporate backgrounds kind of understand that model. It should have measurable goals and objectives by the association and relevant departments. It should contain headcounts, major programs, operational, maintenance, and capital spending by department. And we would recommend this approach so that the plan process can begin immediately with this planning year.
second questions, which some of you have from a February meeting. That should be really released by the GM. Those questions should be developed by the GM, and that's the questions finalized by the GM. And that survey should be released as soon as possible. Third recommendation. As far as the committee is concerned, this whole new planning process completely eliminates this committee charter. And what the committee would do in the future should really be determined in what happens in these discussions on the planning process between the board and the general manager. We could be a resource group, we could be a research group, we could be non-existent in that planning process. But this is kind of a complete change in the paradigm from what we've had in the past. So the role of the committee, I mean, you know, to kind of not be real facetious. You know, in Washington, D.C., we have more committees serving World War I veterans than we have existing World War I veterans alive. We don't need to do that in Ocean Pines. Any questions?
Frank, first of all, thank you very much. This is, I think, this is the first time I'm seeing it in more detail, but I did understand the concept and was first shared. With regard to the immediacy, I guess I'm going to kind of share this with my board colleagues. If we decide to move forward with this, from a housekeeping perspective, you know, and a governance perspective, we obviously need to update the charter for the Comprehensive Planning Committee. Do we see any barriers to doing that? Are we concerned that it's a mere formality at this point, and we can work within the confines of knowing that we've got that sort of ancillary duty to do the cleanup? Any concern on that part? Counselor?
Hey, Doug, I'll put it over to ARC over to the bylaws committee if you want to have them redo it.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm looking more, so that's the formal aspect of it, Ted, and thank you. I was looking more from a sort of a conceptual issue. In other words, until we walk through those steps, are we okay, and do we agree that it's okay to move forward, not knowing, or knowing that we don't have the, you know, the resolution reconfigured to match the new environment? And as long as everybody's okay with that, I'd say we can move forward. Slobodan.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. You know, what I envision in terms of moving forward, I would like to suggest is that I will reconnect with the chair of the committee and work on basically a new language for the resolution that will reflect the new charter, the new mission, run it by the budget and by the bylaws and resolutions committee. I'll work jointly on that language and really try to have this ready for first reading as early as next regular board meeting. In parallel, if the board is in agreement with the recommendations, I would like to just note that as giving Frank and the committee a green light to really proceed with these newly recommended steps. And then through the general manager's office, really establish a timeline, you know, in terms of the need for actually developing a strategic plan and what practical role and value added can be provided by the committee, and kind of develop that action plan, and then present that to the board as part of, you know, the next meeting and possibly the first reading of the newly revised resolution.
To follow up on what Slobodan said, it is the committee's responsibility to draft the new language that you want and then run it by the bylaws. The only other question that I had, or comment, Frank, was the survey questions were sort of left in limbo at one point. They were supposed to come back to the board for sort of a final, if you will. That never happened. I took the initiative to send you my final comments. I don't know that anybody else did that. So in your recommendation to give that to the GM to immediately implement, I think we might be missing a step of what those final questions might be before they go out. So I would just ask what you're feeling about where we are with finalized questions.
In the February meeting, we handed the questions over to the board, and we asked the board to give them back to us, either accept them, reject them, or modify them. We've not received an accept, reject, or modify from that past board. So from the committee standpoint, we're done, the ball's in your court, and the ball's never been passed back. Now, under the new planning model and under the corporate planning model, to kind of speak corporatese, because we are a homeowners corporation, that plan is Mr. Bailey's and his staff. And they need to get the input that they need for their plan the way that they feel is the best way to get the input from their resources that they have. They have day-to-day contact with homeowners. They can ask questions. We can support that. But the final questions in the committee's mind, in the corporate planning model, reside with the general manager and his staff. Now, kind of in the same corporate model, boards typically operate in conjunction with chief operating officers in terms of case of the environmental committee. Most corporations have an environmental policy and an environmental statement and environmental actions. If his plan wouldn't have that, we would expect as the committee, the board would say, why don't you have that? And it's part of your discussions with him, not as part of the committee discussion with you. So it becomes an interaction between the general manager as the head of operations and the board responsible for oversight and strategic direction to get the things in the plan that have to be the plan. Now, under that structure, to answer your question, the committee rules change almost across the board, or could change across the board if you wanted them to. For
Frank, very good explanation, and I concur on most of the points. I think just in thinking through what you were saying, I don't know that there's any restriction that prevents the GM from involving himself in committee meetings, activities, and so on and so forth. So I'd like to believe that line of communication is already open, and I can tell by JB's reactions already in his attendance at committee meetings that that communication channel has been open. So I think we should certainly leverage that. On another note regarding the survey, so point well taken. Obviously, you know, the ball's in our court. What I think, and I'm just going to make this as a suggestion, is if you could help refresh, and I'll just say my memory, all right, by sending those questions again, so I make sure that I have the latest and greatest version, and obviously share that with JB as well. And I think the next thing, and I'm just suggesting this, would be have JB take a look at the questions, make sure they cover the areas that he's concerned about. Maybe you have some you know, additions, changes, and so on and so forth, and then we reconvene to just talk about making sure that we're in agreement that the final edited version of the survey questions is all in agreement with what we want to move forward, and then hand that back and then say, guys, we can go ahead and do the survey. Does that sound realistic or something we should take on?
Yes, and those would need to be sent to me and Tad, because we would not have been on the board when they were originally sent. Thank you.
So, Frank, if you could take care of making sure that we have the latest version of the survey questions, and then that's a good starting point for us to continue the efforts. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Doug, just to
any
make
other
a
questions for
just to
Frank?
make a comment, the obvious comment. Obviously, with the endorsement of a new model of new approach and these recommendations, it is likely that the existing questions that are part of the final survey draft are going to change. So as you see, keep in mind we haven't received JB's feedback yet. And there is definitely a collaboration with other committees that will take place, like natural resources and a few others. So don't look at the survey anymore as a final, but really just as a draft that's work in progress.
Cheryl?
Frank, did I understand you to say, however, that these would be questions that the general manager would be developing that would fit in with the strategic plan? So do you really want this to come back to the board at this point, or shouldn't we be waiting? Because I thought I understood you to say that it should be his questions and that he develops it. I mean, you can send him whatever the last version was, and then he incorporates that and decides, and then he brings it to the board. But I'm not understanding why you are going to then send it to us if indeed what I thought I heard you say was it was supposed to be his questions. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're absolutely correct.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Under the new model, the questions belong to Mr. Bailey and his staff, and he has a copy of the February 10th questions. He was gracious enough to come to the meeting. We suspended our Robert's Rules of Orders and had Mr. Bailey and Director Trendick participate in the discussion and came to these recommendations. So the questions would really reside 100% with the GM, and I think that there should be an interaction between you and the GM. I mean, that's my opinion as a lot owner, okay, on the questions. But I would say this, the questions, as I recall, have about 5 or 6 open-ended questions. So, 2 things. Some input is better than no input to the board. And the second thing, there's plenty of input if you miss something. If we miss something in the questions, and there's an open-ended question, somebody can give that input. And it's just a matter of then collecting it. So I think that for practical purposes, the survey's ready to go and can be sent out almost immediately if Mr. Bailey agrees with the questions. The question would be, does he want to execute the survey with his staff, or does he want the committee to execute it? But either way, you and Mr. Bailey get the results from the questions, almost in real time if we use the one model.
Any other questions for Frank? Frank, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Seeing no new...
Just back up once. I would like to see those questions, though. So if they could just be sent, I'd like to see them. Thank you.
There are no more items under new business, so I'm going to close the new business section of the meeting and move on to committee appointments. We'll take them one at a time. The first committee appointment is Ken Karakne for the 2018, for Search Committee for 2018. Any questions about Ken? All those in favor of his appointment signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Next individual is Thomas Piatti, again for the Search Committee for 2018. Any questions with Mr. Piatti's application? All those in favor of accepting Tom Piatti on the Search Committee? Aye.
Aye.
All right. And then we had an addition at the beginning of the meeting to change the agenda. We have an application of John Viola for the Budget and Finance Committee. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all those in favor of John Viola for the appointed to the Budget and Finance Committee signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
I think the vote was 9-0 on that one. So, seeing no other committee appointments, I'll move to accept a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, Ted, you're good to go, Ted.